In 2022, something happened. Not a war, not an election, not a natural disaster. A chatbot went online, and within 5 days, it had 1 million users. For context, it took Netflix 3.5 years to reach that number. Instagram 2.5 months. A chatbot did it in 5 days. That chatbot was ChatGPT. And whether you think AI is the greatest invention in human history or the beginning of something we are not ready for, you cannot deny that something shifted that year. But here is what nobody told you. ChatGPT is not AI. I mean, it is. But it is one type, one model, one approach. And there is an entire universe of AI models out there. Models that generate images, models that write code, models that listen, speak, see, and reason, models that are so different from each other they barely share a category. And most people have no idea they exist. So today, we are going through all of them, not just the names, not just the logos, but what they actually are, what they do, why they were built, and honestly, what they mean for the world you are living in right now. Because this is not just a technology story, it is a human one, and it is only getting started. Before we get into each type, we need to answer a question that sounds simple, but really is not. What is an AI model? Because when most people hear the word model, they think of a fashion model, or a 3D model, or maybe a model airplane they built as a kid. But an AI model is something else entirely. Imagine you want to teach a child to recognize a cat. You do not write them a rule book. You do not say, 4 legs, whiskers, pointy ears, check all 3, it is a cat. You just show them cats, hundreds of them, thousands, black cats, white cats, fat cats, angry cats, cartoon cats, and over time, the child just knows. They can look at something and say, that is a cat. They cannot explain exactly how they know. They just do. That is essentially what an AI model is, a system trained on enormous amounts of data until it learns patterns, until it can make predictions, generate outputs, recognize things, respond to things, not because someone programmed every rule, but because it learned. And depending on what it was trained on, what kind of data, how much, using what technique, the model becomes something completely different. That is why there are so many types, not because engineers could not agree on one approach, but because different problems demand different solutions. So let us meet them, one by one. We start here, because this is the model most people have actually touched, the large language model, the LLM, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Llama, Mistral. These are all large language models, and what they do, at their core, is surprisingly simple to explain. They predict the next word. That is it. That is the trick. You give them a sentence, and they figure out what word most likely comes next, then the next, then the next, and before you know it, they have written a paragraph, an essay, a poem, an entire story. But here is what makes this remarkable. To predict the next word accurately, across every possible topic, these models had to read essentially everything. Books, articles, Wikipedia, scientific papers, code, conversations, websites, hundreds of billions of words. Compressed, learned, internalized. And something unexpected happened. These models did not just learn language. They absorbed knowledge. They developed what looks, and I say looks, like reasoning. They could answer questions, write code, explain complex ideas, translate languages, draft legal documents, tutor students, debug software. All from learning to predict the next word. I genuinely think this is one of the strangest and most fascinating things in science right now. Nobody fully understands why it works so well. It just does, and that should both excite you and make you a little uneasy, because we are building tools we do not fully understand, and we are building them incredibly fast. Now let me ask you something. If I said to you, paint me a picture of an astronaut riding a horse through a neon city at sunset, what would you do? Most people would laugh. Maybe try to sketch something rough, but an image generation model, it would hand you a finished, photorealistic image in about 3 seconds. This is Midjourney, DALL-E Stable Diffusion, Adobe Firefly, and they work in a way that is almost poetic. They start with noise, literal visual static, random pixels, and then, step by step, they sculpt that noise into an image, guided by your words, shaped by everything they have ever seen. It is like watching a photograph develop in a darkroom. Except the darkroom has seen every painting, every photograph, every illustration ever uploaded to the internet, and it is doing this in your browser, in seconds. Now, I want to be honest about the complexity here, because image generation models have sparked a real conversation about artists, about creativity, about ownership. These models learned by training on human artwork made by real people, over years, over lifetimes, and now a model can produce something in that style instantly, without paying the artist, without asking permission. Is that progress? Or is it theft? I genuinely do not know. I do not think anyone fully does yet. But I think it is one of the most important questions of this decade, and we should be asking it louder. Here is a thought experiment. You walk into a room, in an instant, without thinking. You know where the door is, where the furniture is, who is in the room, what they are doing. You process all of that in a fraction of a second. Your brain has been doing this your whole life, so it feels effortless. For a machine, that is an extraordinary challenge. Vision models, or computer vision models, are AI trained to understand images and video, not generate them. Understand them. They can look at an X-ray and flag a potential tumor. They can watch a factory production line and spot a defective product at high speed. They can read a handwritten prescription and convert it to text. They can identify a person in a crowd from a single camera frame. That last one I want to linger on, because facial recognition is a vision model, and it is already deployed in airports, shopping malls, sporting events, and city streets, in some countries, without the knowledge or consent of the people being scanned. Vision models are extraordinary tools. They save lives in medicine. They improve safety in industry. But they also raise questions about surveillance that we have barely begun to answer. Technology always moves faster than the law. Vision models might be the sharpest example of that right now. Close your eyes for a second. Well, do not. You are watching. But imagine, you are talking to your phone. Not typing, not tapping, just talking. And it understands you, responds to you, helps you. 10 years ago, that felt like science fiction. Today, it is Tuesday morning. Speech models are the AI behind voice recognition and voice generation. There are two sides to them. The first, speech to text. You speak. The model transcribes. This is what powers voice assistants, live captions, meeting transcriptions. Models like OpenAI's Whisper can transcribe speech in dozens of languages in real time with remarkable accuracy. The second side, text-to-speech. The model speaks. And modern text-to-speech models do not just read words aloud. They breathe, they pause, they laugh, they emphasize, they sound human, sometimes more human than some humans. And this is where I get genuinely uncomfortable. Because voice cloning is real. With a few seconds of someone's voice, some models can replicate it, say anything, in their voice, indistinguishably. Think about what that means. Think about a phone call from your parent, your child, your boss, and not knowing, truly not knowing, if it is real. Speech models are beautiful tools, but they are also, in the wrong hands, one of the most dangerous things on this list, and I think that deserves to be said plainly. Let me tell you something that would have sounded absurd 5 years ago. Today, you can describe a piece of software in plain English, and an AI will write the code for you. Working code. Tested code. Sometimes better code than a junior developer would write. That is what code models do. GitHub Copilot, Amazon Code Whisperer, Cursor, Replit AI. These tools are trained specifically on code, billions of lines of it, across every programming language, and they have genuinely changed how software gets built. A developer who used to spend an hour writing boilerplate code can now do it in minutes. A beginner who never knew how to code can now build a working app with AI assistance. Entire startups are being built by teams of 2 or 3 people, doing what used to require 20, because AI writes half the code. Now, does these mean developers are obsolete? No. And I want to be direct about this. Good developers are more valuable than ever, because someone still has to know which code is right, which solution is elegant, which approach will not break in 6 months. The AI can write the sentences, but you still need someone who understands the story. Code models are a power tool, extraordinary in the right hands, but a power tool in the wrong hands can still do serious damage. And now, we get to something that I think is the most significant development in AI right now. Something that quietly changes everything, the multimodal model. A multimodal model is an AI that can handle multiple types of input at the same time. Text, images, audio, video, code, not separately. Together. Simultaneously, you can show it a photo of your broken sink and ask, "How do I fix this?" You can hand it a graph and say, "What does this data tell me?" You can speak to it out loud and it responds, out loud, in real time. You can give it a document, a spreadsheet, and a voice memo, and ask it to summarize everything into a report. GPT-4o, Gemini Ultra, Claude. These are multimodal models, and they represent a fundamental shift. Because for decades, AI was narrow. One model, one task. A model that could recognize faces could not write a sentence. A model that could translate text had no idea what an image was. Multimodal models collapse those walls. And when I think about where this is heading, an AI that can see what you see, hear what you hear, and respond in real time, I feel 2 things simultaneously: awe and a quiet sense of vertigo, because we are not talking about a smarter search engine anymore. We are talking about something that perceives the world, not the way you do, but in a way that is becoming harder and harder to dismiss. Okay, I want to talk about the AI model that has had more influence on your daily life than any other. More than ChatGPT, more than image generators, more than anything on this list. The recommendation model. Every time YouTube decides what video plays next, every time Netflix suggests a show, every time Instagram fills your feed, every time Spotify builds you a playlist, a recommendation model made that decision, and these models are extraordinarily good at their job, which is keeping you engaged, keeping you watching, keeping you scrolling. Now here is where I want to say something that might be uncomfortable. These models are not optimized for your happiness. They are not optimized for your well-being. They are optimized for your attention. And attention and well-being are not the same thing. Research consistently shows that content triggering strong emotions, anger, fear, outrage, gets more engagement than content that is calm, nuanced, or balanced. So the model learns to show more of it, not because anyone programmed it to radicalize you or make you anxious, but because that is what the data rewarded. The recommendation model is the most invisible AI in your life, and it might be the one shaping your beliefs, your moods, and your worldview more than anything else. That is not a comfortable thought, but I think it is an important one. So far, everything we have talked about sounds massive. Billions of dollars, thousands of engineers, enormous data centers. And it is true that the biggest AI models are expensive beyond imagination. Training GPT-4 reportedly cost over $100 million. But something is happening quietly on the other side of this story, and I think it might be just as important. Small models, open source models, AI that does not live on a company's server but runs on your laptop, your phone, even a cheap computer. Llama, released by Meta, Mistral, from a small French team, Phi, from Microsoft Research, models that are a fraction of the size of GPT-4, but capable of remarkable things. And here is why I find this genuinely exciting. When AI runs locally, Your data stays private. You do not need an internet connection. You do not need to pay a subscription. You do not need to trust a corporation with your conversations. Open source AI puts the technology in the hands of anyone who wants it. A researcher in a country with limited resources, a developer working alone, a student who cannot afford a subscription. There is something deeply hopeful about that. The idea that one of the most powerful technologies in human history could be available to everyone, not just the companies that can afford it. So, we have covered a lot of ground. Large language models that learn to reason by reading everything humans ever wrote. Image models that sculpt pictures out of noise. Vision models that can see, sometimes better than we can. Speech models that can clone a voice from a handful of seconds. Code models that are rewriting how software gets built. Multimodal models that perceive the world across every sense simultaneously. Reinforcement learning models that found strategies no human ever discovered. Recommendation models quietly shaping what you watch, read, and believe. And small open-source models putting all of this in the hands of anyone. That is a lot, I know. But here is the thing I want to leave you with. AI models are tools. The most powerful tools humanity has ever built. And like every powerful tool before them, from fire to the printing press to the internet, what they become depends entirely on the hands they are in. Your hands, my hands, all of ours. So maybe the most important question is not, what can AI do? Maybe the most important question is, what are we going to do with it? Thanks for watching.